If you've ever noticed that the moment you stop trying, she suddenly cared more, this is why. Because attraction doesn't grow when you speak. It grows when you create space. And most men destroy that space without realizing it. Here's the mistake you were never warned about. You thought showing interest would bring her closer. You thought clarity would make her feel safe. You thought effort was attractive. So you talked more, explained more, reached out more. And slowly, something shifted. She replied later. She felt distant. She pulled back. Not because you were boring, not because you weren't good enough, but because attraction suffocates when there's no room to breathe. Silence is not absence. Silence is pressure, quiet pressure, the kind that doesn't scream, the kind that lingers. Most men are afraid of silence. They see it as weakness, as losing control, as risking rejection. But silence doesn't make her forget you. It makes her feel you. Here's the reality most men never hear. Attraction is not built by constant presence. It's built by emotional movement. When you're always there, her emotions stay still. There's no tension, no pull, no curiosity. You become predictable, and predictability kills desire. Women don't crave effort. They crave emotional contrast. They want to feel something change. Silence creates that change. When you stop filling every gap with words, her mind steps in. She starts replaying moments, rereading messages, wondering what you're doing. Not because you asked her to, but because her emotions finally have space to move. This is where attraction quietly flips. Let's talk about the first psychological shift. Shift 1. Silence removes certainty. Certainty feels comfortable, but comfort alone doesn't create desire. When she knows exactly how you feel, what you want, and that you'll always be there, there's nothing left to discover. Silence takes certainty away, and uncertainty creates curiosity. Curiosity is dangerous, in a good way. It pulls her attention inward. She starts asking herself questions. Why hasn't he replied yet? What is he thinking? Did I matter more than I realized? You didn't manipulate her. You didn't play a game. You simply stopped over-explaining, and her mind leaned forward. Now the second shift. Shift 2. Silence restores emotional balance. When you chase, you give her emotional control. Your mood depends on her replies. Your confidence depends on her attention. She feels that, even if she never says it. Need has weight, and weight kills attraction. Silence removes that weight. You're no longer reaching, you're grounded. You're no longer asking, you're choosing. That calm stillness sends a message without words. I am okay either way. That message is powerful because it signals self-respect. Women don't chase men who chase them. They chase men who seem complete without them. Now the third shift, and this one reveals the truth. Shift 3. Silence exposes real interest. When you stop initiating, stop checking in, stop carrying the connection, the dynamic shows its true shape. If she was only responding to your effort, she fades. If she was emotionally invested, she leans in. Either way, silence protects you. It stops you from overgiving. It stops you from chasing validation. It forces honesty, not through words, through behavior. And behavior never lies. Here's the fourth shift. Shift 4. Your attention becomes rare. Attention only feels valuable when it's not guaranteed. When you were always available, your presence felt normal. When you stepped back, it became noticeable. She feels the absence of what she used to receive for free. And the human mind reacts strongly to loss. Not dramatic loss, subtle loss. The quiet realization that something changed. And now the fifth shift. Shift 5. Silence creates emotional tension. Not loud tension, not conflict. Quiet tension. The kind that sits with her when she's alone. The kind that makes her check her phone without knowing why. The kind that keeps you present even when you're not speaking. That's attraction. Not forced, not chased, but felt. Silence doesn't beg for desire. It invites it. And that's why the man who speaks less, but stands firm, is often the one she can't stop thinking about. When silence sets in, her emotions don't disappear. They get louder. Not on the surface. Inside. This is where most men misunderstand what's happening. They think silence means distance. They think it means disinterest. They think it means the connection is dying. But psychologically, the opposite is happening. Because the female mind doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to contrast. And silence creates contrast. When you are always available, your presence blended into the background. When you stepped back, your absence stood out. Her emotional system noticed the change before her logic did. That's important, because attraction doesn't start in logic. It starts in feeling. Here's the next shift. Shift 6. Silence activates emotional recall. When you're no longer constantly present, her mind starts replaying you. Not the entire relationship. Specific moments. The way you looked at her. The tone of your voice. The calm confidence you had before you started trying harder. Silence pulls those moments forward. Because the mind fills gaps with memory. And memory is powerful. She doesn't miss your messages. She misses how she felt around you. That feeling resurfaces when there's nothing new to distract her from it. This is why men who disappear often feel more present than men who chase. Now the next shift. Shift 7. Silence creates emotional uncertainty. Certainty feels safe, but uncertainty feels alive. When she doesn't know where she stands with you, her emotions stay alert. She watches more closely, listens more carefully, reads between lines, not because she wants control, but because her emotions are engaged again. Silence removes predictability, and predictability is comfort, not attraction. This uncertainty isn't panic. It's tension, quiet tension, the kind that keeps you in her thoughts without effort. Now, let's talk about something uncomfortable. Shift 8. Silence forces her to invest. When you stopped initiating everything, someone had to move. And now it's her. She either reaches out or she doesn't. But either way, you're no longer doing all the emotional work. Investment creates attachment. The more she thinks, initiates, or wonders, the more emotionally involved she becomes. This is not manipulation. This is balance. You're no longer overgiving while she underinvests. Silence restores fairness to the dynamic. Now the next shift. Shift 9. Silence triggers loss awareness. Humans don't react strongly to presence. They react to loss, not dramatic loss. Subtle loss, the loss of attention, the loss of validation, the loss of emotional safety she assumed was guaranteed. When you were always there, your attention felt stable. When you stepped back, it became uncertain. That uncertainty makes her reassess. Not you, the connection. She starts to feel the weight of what might be slipping away. And that feeling creates urgency, not desperation. Awareness. Now here's where most men break silence too early. They feel uncomfortable. They feel anxious. They want relief. So they reach out. They reset the pattern. And the attraction fades again. Because silence only works when it's grounded, not when it's used as a tactic. Which leads to the next shift. Shift 10. Silence only creates attraction when it's authentic. If silence comes from fear, she feels it. If it comes from manipulation, she senses it. But if it comes from self-respect, it lands differently. Authentic silence says, I value my time. I don't chase attention. I don't need reassurance to feel stable. That energy is unmistakable. It's calm, centered, unreactive. And women are deeply attracted to men who are emotionally steady. Not cold, not distant. Steady. Now let's talk about regret. Because this is where silence quietly changes her behavior. When she realizes you're no longer bending, no longer chasing, no longer waiting, she starts questioning her assumptions. She assumed you'd always be there. She assumed your attention was endless. She assumed she could take it for granted. Silence challenges those assumptions. And when assumptions break, regret forms. Not dramatic regret, subtle regret. The kind that shows up as curiosity, as reaching out just to check, as sudden warmth where there was distance before. Not because you demanded it, because you stopped offering yourself freely. Silence doesn't punish. It reveals. It reveals how much you mattered. It reveals how much she valued you. It reveals whether the connection was real. And most importantly, it reveals something to you. Your worth does not come from how much you give. It comes from how you carry yourself when you stop chasing. That's where attraction quietly shifts back into your hands. Silence doesn't just change how she feels. It changes how she sees you. This is where attraction stops being emotional and starts becoming psychological. Because once silence holds, her perception of you shifts. Not overnight, quietly. Here's the next shift. Shift 11. Silence reframes your value. When you are always available, your time felt unlimited. Unlimited things are rarely valued. When you stepped back, your time became scarce. Scarcity creates worth. She starts noticing your absence in places she used to expect you, not consciously at first, emotionally. And the mind assigns value to what is no longer guaranteed. This isn't about ego. It's about perception. You didn't change who you are. You changed how accessible you are. And that changes everything. Now the next shift. Shift 12. Silence makes her project meaning onto you. When you stop explaining yourself, her mind fills in the blanks. And the mind almost always fills blanks with emotion. She starts creating stories. He's busy. He's confident. He's focused. Or sometimes, he's pulling away. Either way, she's thinking about you. And thinking creates attachment. Men who explain too much remove imagination. Men who stay silent leave room for it. Imagination is fuel for attraction. Now, let's talk about something deeper. Shift 13. Silence activates self-reflection in her. When you stop chasing, she stops feeling chased. And when she stops feeling chased, she looks inward. She starts questioning her own behavior. Did I pull away too much? Did I take him for granted? Did I misread his value? This is powerful. Because now, the emotional spotlight is on her, not you. Silence flips the direction of emotional effort. You're no longer proving yourself. She's reassessing herself. Now the next shift. Shift 14. Silence removes emotional pressure from you. When you stop talking, you stop performing. No more timing messages. No more wondering what to say. No more waiting for replies to feel okay. Your nervous system calms. And that calm shows. Even when you do speak, your words carry more weight. Because you're no longer speaking from need. You're speaking from choice. That difference is felt instantly. Men underestimate how much women sense emotional pressure. Silence releases that pressure. And relaxed energy is attractive. Now the next shift. Shift 15. Silence creates polarity. Attraction needs polarity. Movement. Contrast. Push and pull. When you were always leaning in, there was no pull. Silence creates that pull. Not artificially. Naturally. You lean back. The connection stretches. And stretching creates tension. Healthy tension. The kind that keeps interest alive. Now let's talk about the mistake that ruins everything. Breaking silence to relieve anxiety. Many men break silence not because they want to speak, but because they're uncomfortable. They want relief. So they send a message. They check in. They reopen the door. And instantly, the tension collapses. Attraction fades again. Because silence only works when it's rooted in self-respect, not fear, not strategy, self-respect. Which brings us to the next shift. Shift 16. Silence rebuilds your identity. When you stop chasing attention, you return to yourself. Your focus shifts back to your life, your goals, your direction. That shift is subtle but powerful. You stop trying to be chosen. You start choosing. And identity is attractive. Not words, not promises. Identity. Women don't fall for effort. They fall for who a man is when no one is watching. Silence reveals that. Now the final shift. Shift 17. Silence teaches you detachment. Detachment isn't indifference. It's emotional freedom. You care, but you're not controlled. You want connection, but you don't need validation. That inner stance changes how you move, how you speak, how you respond. And women feel that immediately. Detachment is not cold. It's grounded. And grounded men are rare. Silence doesn't make you disappear. It sharpens you. It strips away over-effort, over-explaining, over-giving. What remains is presence. Quiet, steady, unshakable. That presence is what shifts attraction from uncertain to undeniable. At this point, silence has already done its work. Not on her, on you. Because the real power of silence isn't what it makes her feel. It's what it makes you become. Most men think attraction is something they have to earn, something they have to perform for, something they have to secure before it disappears. That belief keeps them chasing. Silence breaks that belief. Because when you stop chasing, you realize something uncomfortable but freeing. You were never meant to convince someone to see your value. Your value was supposed to be felt. Silence allows that. Now let's talk about what not to do. Because many men misunderstand silence and turn it into another mistake. Silence is not ignoring. It's not disappearing to provoke fear. It's not withholding affection to gain control. That kind of silence feels sharp, cold, punishing. Women sense that immediately. Real silence is calm. It's grounded. It comes from self-respect, not resentment. It says, I don't need to chase to feel worthy. I don't need constant contact to feel secure. I trust myself enough to step back. That energy changes everything. Now here's where the dynamic truly flips. When she reaches out after silence and you respond calmly, not eagerly, not emotionally, she feels the difference. You're no longer reacting. You're choosing. That choice creates respect. And respect is the foundation of lasting attraction. Without it, desire fades. Now let's talk about leveling up. Because silence without growth is just waiting. And waiting leads to stagnation. Silence works when you use it to redirect energy back into yourself, your body, your work, your purpose, your discipline. When your life starts moving forward again, your energy changes. You stop needing attention. You stop craving validation. You stop measuring your worth by someone else's interest. That independence is attractive. Not because she notices your progress immediately, but because she feels the shift when she's around you. Now let's address regret. When a woman realizes you no longer bend, no longer chase, no longer linger in uncertainty, she starts seeing you differently, not as someone she can take for granted, but as someone she could lose. That realization creates emotional urgency, not panic, not drama, awareness. And awareness leads to respect. But here's the truth most men need to hear. Her regret is not your goal. Your peace is. Silence is not about making her miss you. It's about making you whole again. When you reach that point, whether she returns or not stops defining you. And that's when attraction becomes effortless. Because you're no longer seeking it. You're embodying it. Silence teaches you restraint. Restraint builds strength. Strength creates presence. Presence creates attraction. Not tricks, not tactics, not manipulation, just alignment. When you speak less, your words matter more. When you react less, your presence feels stronger. When you chase less, you're seen more clearly. Silence doesn't make you invisible. It makes you solid. And solid men don't need to beg for attention. They command it quietly. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that the men who seem most desired are rarely the ones explaining themselves? They're calm. They're centered. They're not rushing to be chosen. They're already chosen themselves. That's the identity silence builds. Not arrogance, not indifference, self-respect. And once you have that, attraction is no longer something you chase. It's something that follows. So here's the question I want you to sit with. Have you been speaking to fill silence or avoiding silence because you're afraid of what it might reveal? If silence stripped away effort, validation, and chasing, who would you be? Write your thoughts in the comments. I read them. And if this resonated, subscribe for more conversations like this. Not louder, not flashier, just real. Because sometimes the most powerful move a man can make is to say nothing at all.